Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody present, respected Chairman Sir, respected Vice Chairman Sir, our guest of honor, Mr. Sudhan Sukashik, board members, our esteemed panelists joining from different parts of the world, young delegates, and all our viewers. I, Dipangana, on behalf of the BRICS CCI fraternity, wish you all a very happy International Youth Day. The BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry was founded in 2012 with the efforts of eminent professionals, entrepreneurs, industrialists, bureaucrats from BRICS and beyond, having its headquarters in New Delhi, India, and country offices in Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. In the nearly decade-old journey of the Chamber, it has promoted business houses for trade and commerce from all BRICS nations and neighboring countries. The Chamber is impaneled with Niti Aayog, the highest policy-making body of India and recognized by the United Nations. Our efforts have been recognized by several union ministers of the Government of India and the governments of BRICS nations. August 12 marks the annual celebration of International Youth Day as an awareness day designated by the United Nations. This day is dedicated to the role young minds play in bringing change, in tackling global issues and achieving sustainable development. It also serves as an opportunity to raise awareness of the challenges and problems facing the world's youth. The role of youth in fostering intra-BRICS bonds has been recognized by BRICS leaders during the past BRICS summits. The sixth BRICS Youth Summit under the theme BRICS Challenges of the Time for Young People was held in a hybrid mode in 2020. Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports attended the sixth BRICS Youth Summit, wherein he stressed the importance of contribution of youth across the globe in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, in line with the BRICS 2021, we at BRICS CCI are elated to announce the launch of an annual youth summit to be celebrated every year on International Youth Day, that is 12th August. Inaugurating with India's chairship in 2021, the Chamber attempts to host a session that shall provide our viewers and participating forums useful insights to build upon a successful annual report to locate areas of cooperation and empowerment of youth participation from BRICS nations. We would also like to extend our sincerest thanks and acknowledge the support of our strategic partners, namely Confederation of Young Leaders, the Young India Foundation, the South African BRICS Youth Association, Sabya, Avas Foundation, Spasmodic Student Body under the aegis of Lovely Profession University, International Sharing School, Portugal, TV BRICS, and the Raisina House. Without further ado, I would now like to welcome Mr. Vishwas Tripathi, the Chairman of BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to deliver the opening address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dipangana. I welcome Mr. Sudhan Sukashik, founder, Young India Foundation and North American Association for Indian Students, as our guest of honor. Mr. Samir Shastri, our esteemed Vice Chairman and face of our youth wing and youth power in our chamber. Esteemed speakers, panelists on this BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry celebration of International Youth Day on 12th of August. Friends, I am more than happy to see that the participation is huge, not only from Chamber, but all the BRICS nations, including Brazil, India, Russia, China, and South Africa. I welcome the young leaders of the planet, more particularly in our BRICS countries, people who are young in age as well as I take this opportunity to welcome people who are young in mind too, without the this barrier of age. Youth is a bundle of energy. When God gives you birth, youth is the time when you are having abundance energy to take the way forward. Many countries we have seen, the regimes have changed because of youth participation. Because youth by temperament. Youth means that you are rebellious. You are not accepting the status quo. That is the proof of getting old, getting decaying. Youth is something which always thinks from a different perspective, from a new perspective. Youth means that today we are celebrating the International Youth Day. I would like to call it a day where not only we have to celebrate, but the youth of the world have to contemplate also. In the midst of these challenging times, which we are witnessing the last 1.5 years, this pandemic, as we all know, the biggest challenge that is being faced by the section of society as on date is the youth, because a whole lot of aspirations, whole lot of, I will say, dreams I have seen and we have all seen are being shattered and being redefined. In this pandemic, not only we have to see that it is a bad thing, but every bad thing always has some good things also. We need to contemplate. We were, as a youth, in India, I can say particularly, right from before this pandemic, right from 30 years, since 1991, youth was the one who was most empowered. And they were having dreams and dreams and dreams of making the life easier, happy, challenging with technology, with other modes and all, with entrepreneurship. But this pandemic has really taught us that is it worth running away only on material things? Now we have seen that not only material things, we have seen that what we need is not much. What we have to do is that how best we can deliver to the masses who are deprived with our talent. Entrepreneurship is something which doesn't come to everyone. Our young leaders, they are the ones who are most energetic, who are most risk-taking, having more entrepreneurial skills. I would urge them, utilize your talent, take challenges, but don't ever forget your roots. You have to have your feet on the ground and you may soar in the sky. This is the time when I request my youth, our youth, to do a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are opportunities? What are our threats? Youth by temperament is rebellious. However, don't leave your elders with the option that whatever they have done is for them and whatever you are doing is for you. No. They may have done many things that you don't agree, but they may have done many things that also helps you and will help you in your development. So What I profess today is energy, rebelliousness, with feet on the ground, with our teaching of the past. Whatever you do to the best of your capacity, but keeping in mind that you have to contribute to society also. Whatever we have done in the last 100, 200, 500 years or 2000 years, we are developing towards more material world. But material is good. But one small invisible virus has really shaken the whole mankind on earth. Our all innovations, our all paraphernalias, our all money power, sometimes we have seen has failed. So I would like to end my note on this last sentence, that you please prosper, but please contemplate also whatever you have got from the past, just dissect it. Whatever you think there's a nectar in that, accept it. Don't throw away everything because it is past and it is stinking. No. कमल का फूल भी वहीं खिलता है जहां कीचड़ होता है. So you have to have a holistic approach where you need to have experience of the elders and exuberance and energy of the young people. With this, I request I thank Deepangana, I thank Suzanne, I thank all the participants, and I congratulate them to have spared the time for this. And I know that in the second session, there is going to be a cultural gala evening. You all enjoy it. But while celebrating, please contemplate also what has gone on wrong, what needs to be done for future betterment of everyone. You are the torch bearers of the society. And please, with rights comes a lot of responsibility also. So I wish you all the success to all our young leaders, our young people, and especially for people who may have aged, but they are young at heart, young in mind, young in approach. So I call all of them young people, and I wish all the best to everybody on this International Youth Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind and truly inspirational words. Now I would like to invite our guest of honor for the webinar, Mr. Sudhan Sukashik. Mr. Sudhanshu is an international youth activist known for founding the Young India Foundation and also the North American Association of Indian Students. He is known for his work on youth participation and is currently authoring The Future is Ours, forthcoming by Westland Publications, to deliver his remarks. Over to you, Mr. Sudhanshu.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, absolutely.
Perfect. I'll be really quick and short because I know everyone is a little bit lacking on time. So my name is Sudhan Sukashik. I am the founder of the Young India Foundation, and basically YF is India's first youth-centric political action committee, and on top of that, an advocacy group and a think tank. And when I say that, it's a complicated way of saying that we help young people contest in local level elections in India at a Zilla Parishad, Sarpanch, Panchayat level for free. We are the only organization to do this on a nonpartisan level. We select independent politicians, so we don't look for what your party politics are or if you are selected by a party, and we focus exclusively on the local level. And that, to me, and especially in this theme's topic, is an answer to how do we get young people to not only talk but also implement the SDGs. So just a quick background, I was educated in New York City, and especially when the SDGs were implemented, was working at the UN, and a lot of the conversations beyond just what we were going to do is how do we implement these, and that's a conversation that has always stuck with me since 2015. I think that's when it was first signed on and implemented and discussed upon. And when we're talking about Young India Foundation, we have this conversation about just electoral politics, right? The nitty-gritty of the back and forth of India's politics that is discussed, the good and the bad. There's a lot of bad, whether it comes under caste equations, whether it comes under religious tensions, and how can we get more votes for this specific individual to win or that individual to win. And YF obviously tries its best to stay away from that, even though I think the climate is such that sometimes you just have to acknowledge that these things exist. But one of the more positive things about the fact that if and how we get young people are the effects of the people who win. As of now, we've had over 56 candidates that we've helped recruit, train, and contest at a local level. We have been in places from Jammu Kashmir to Karnataka. We have had over 12 candidates in Punjab, 10 candidates in Haryana, and truly, I think we've, besides the Northeast in India, because it's a territory that we, faintly understand, we have been widespread where our candidates have been recruited, trained, and won. Out of the 56 candidates, we've actually had 21 that have won, and many of them have come close seconds and close thirds and whatnot. So I think that we're fairly successful for the organization, for the level of an organization we're at. We take very limited external funding, and we charge zero for our candidates. So for that kind of concept, I think we're doing pretty well. We have right now over 7 YF candidates, sarpanches, and sarpanches, for a lot of you that do not know, are the equivalent of a mayor, but of villages. And then panches are basically council members of the village. And we've also had Zilla Parishad, which I don't really know an equivalent of, maybe a state senator of sorts, if people can kind of equate the sorts. But obviously the population is such that there's so many people within that position when it comes to India. But all of these are local level positions, which means, according to the constitution, they have a lot of room for development, for implementation, and for a higher interaction with the lives of their citizens, of their voters. And what I mean by that is there's this big disparity in India where everyone wants to shoot for a member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly at a state level or at a national level. And not a lot of people think about the impact of local level politics and local level positions. And it's kind of counterintuitive, because if you look at the Constitution of India, local level positions are theoretically empowered to have the highest interaction with their citizens. So when people say that they want to bring about change, when they want to create a difference, when they want to help people, my question to them is, why are you thinking of contesting it as an MP or an MLA? Because you might get media behind that, but will you actually be able to help citizens? Theoretically, all that power is manifested within the local level positions of a sarpanch, panch, zilla parishad, then obviously higher positions with that state as well. So one of the biggest things is that push for local. But I think what is relative to this conversation is that there's such a big impetus for local level positions, and not just impetus. I would say that there is a responsibility and potential for SDGs to be implemented. And proudly, we've tried to implement this in 3 villages, looking at SDG metrics of how our candidates that have already won, the change they're able to bring in with their small rural villages in accordance to the metrics of the SDG. And what I mean by that is, for example, in a small town in Fatehpur, Haryana in rural India, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Kurukshetra, Haryana, but also in Satawali, Punjab, which is near Jalandhar and Adampur in Punjab. We were able to get people who had actually won and see what sort of implementation they could do beyond just and I don't know if people are familiar with, the slang of a local village, but ye gali banani hai, ye pani ki nikasi theek karni hai, right? So these daily activities that go on in the village that need to be fixed and worked upon. But on an overarching level, how do we really implement these SDGs at a local level? And do they actually bring about an impact to local citizens and villagers? And the answer is rightfully yes. Both of our candidates who had won were able to divert funding not just towards, let's say, the local sarpanch house, the village community house, etc., but we're able to bring about different things. So, for example, creating recycling centers in these villages. Then there are basic things like making sure that street lamps are actually active. One of our basically candidates, and this is not necessarily a local SDG goal, but we have the highest in Fatehpur, we have the highest broadband internet in basically rural Haryana. And the reason why that is we were able to allocate funding to get satellite to satellite internet connectivity. So there's this, and I'm sorry I'm going too much into details, but this is something that stands out for us, is that there's this entire marketing scheme and government scheme that talks about connecting panchayats, which are rural areas, rural villages, with fiber broadband internet. And that's been the whole appeal. But for the past 2.5, 3 years, that scheme hasn't been implemented first. And B, the broadband internet that they connect is highly volatile. Sometimes it's working for 6 months, sometimes it's not. So one of the first things that when Jagbir, which is one of our first candidates that came into office, we thought about what we could do with the position authority of power. And one of the things that all young people wanted was free Wi-Fi, but they didn't have access to that free Wi-Fi. And if they did have it from that scheme, it was working for 6 months, wasn't working for the next 6 months, etc. And so we were able to create this. And for about 1.6 lakh rupees of the Panchayat funds, we were able to get 1.6 lakh rupees, I'm sorry, able to get a satellite to satellite internet connectivity through Aircell. Not sure if many of you who are based in India have heard of that. And now this Panchayat is getting about 20, 30 gigabytes, or not gigabytes, of speeds of internet every single time they use that. And they have housed it in the Panchayat house in the center of the village. And that Wi-Fi, expands upon through different areas. And you see, even through this small measure, people from different communities, different castes, different religions, trying to interact with one another, obviously with the incentive of using Wi-Fi in the Panchayat house because it's fast, it's free, but still that engagement and interaction that's happening. And not only that, they've actually been able to create more of a circular economy by basically, because they don't need the amount of fast internet that they're getting, but other Panchayat and Panchayat offices need internet, except they don't have that. They're actually renting out that internet from this specific village. So you're just, laying a bed of wires and putting on a satellite. So they've been able to create more of a circular economy to at least pay for some of their expenses of the Panchayat house by using this broadband internet. And I know, what am I talking about? But I hope that is an anecdote in terms of a young candidate at the age of 21 years old coming into office, being elected as a sarpanch through a lot of difficulties, coming from a Dalit background, by the way, in a predominantly upper caste village, and still be able to win without a reserve seat, right? So first, the electoral possibility of this individual and candidate is a very big deal. And for a lot of people that follow politics, I think you would understand how big of a deal it is for someone to win in a non-reserve seat, but coming from a Dalit background. And second of all is the impact that candidate makes on the village in relation to what we as an overarching level discuss about SDGs, right? And there are several examples and anecdotes that I can give you, but I think that I want to end the conversation and hopefully open it up to questions if anyone is interested. On the concept and idea that we are able to really make an impact and have, the need that these conversations that we have and overarching on Zoom or on conferences about SDGs, it won't mean much until we're actually empowering young candidates, young people to implement those measures. I've had a very difficult time, whether it's in New York while working, is these things sound great, but what are specific governments? And then within those specific governments, different state governments, and then different local governments. doing to implement these ideas, these concepts, these goals that we most often talk about. I've seen that a lot of policy has been made in India in relation to SDGs, but not a lot of it has been implemented, unless I'm completely wrong. And that implementation is the biggest factor. And the easiest way we can resolve that is starting from the local level, because A, you see legitimately changes in lives on a daily or weekly, if we're quantifying it, level, and B, it's where you have the most amount of autonomy as well. So other than that, I think that I'll end this conversation. I'll open up to questions if anyone has it about the work we do at YIF. But if I have to leave parting thoughts, is on International Youth Day, think about young people, right? Empower them, don't just lecture them. And then when it comes to the concept of SDGs, think of it from a local level and empowering these young people to implement them. Those are things that we think about, not just on International Youth Day, but on every day. And it's been quite successful thus far. So thanks again for having me, and I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sudhanshu. It truly is a breakthrough project, I personally believe, and I hope it reaches down to the very root level across India. As political scientists would say that politics is a very fluid concept. It is basically part and parcel of our everyday life, and it is imperative for, I think, today's generation to understand it and to participate in it and be as empowered as you just stated. If anybody has any questions, you may do so, or we can take it up in the end or through email ID. No questions as of now. All right. So thanks a lot again. And it was really great to have you here. Now I would like to invite Mr. Sameep Shastri, Vice Chairman, BRIC CCI, to enlighten our audience with the special remarks on this occasion. Over to you, sir.
You're on mute.
So you're on mute.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and thanks to all the panelists from joining from different time zones. And we are discussing one of the most important issues. And I would like to thank Sudhanshu for taking out time and making my point very, kind of easier for me to talk about my special remarks, because that is a constant feeling amongst the youth that we keep talking about the policy, we keep talking about the change makers, but we're not ready to be the change. We're not ready to be the change maker. The most important step towards achieving the sustainable development goals is to be a part of the policy making system. I would request from this platform once again that it is time that we empower ourselves and we start becoming a part of the system so that we can be the change and we can create a better future. Like our Honorable Chairman clearly said, Kamal B. It's the time to get into the dirt and clean it ourselves, and we have to do it. This pandemic actually made us realize that being young, we all are very, we are ready to adapt to changes. We quickly adapted to the digital world, whether it was studying, whether it was work, whether it was. So we are equipped mentally and physically for changes. It's time that we make sustainable development a revolution like the industrial revolution that we have had, the agriculture revolution we have. It is time for a sustainable, greener, economical environment that is much required by us. And we should focus on those top 17 goals of SDG, which look into the basic aspects. And that can only happen, like Sudhanshu said, from the ground level. We have to start supporting from whether it is a local residency or your neighbors. We have to start creating that atmosphere where we are concerned about each and everything that is harming the environment and how it can impact our future generations. It is a very important thought process which was started back in 2015, but now is the time that implementation is required. We talk about cleaner places, we talk about developing economies, we talk about food for all, but is just the discussion part enough is what we need to decide today. Are we going to take concrete steps? I would not make it very long. I would like to congratulate all the panelists who are here, and I'm looking forward for this discussion. And I would like to revisit on my thoughts of SDG post this webinar. And I'm hoping that we all implement something stronger post this panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on, Sustainable Development Goals, also known as...
Dipangana, sorry to bother you. Is Sudhanshu still around? I have a question I was trying to ask, but there was a network issue. If Sudhanshu is around, I'd like to ask him something.
I'm here.
Hey, Sudhanshu. I think I must congratulate and appreciate the entire concept, and may the forces be with you. I'm going to quickly put the question, and I got interested in it. This question was bothering me. India as a country, and I'm assuming that there are other third world nations also, 50 to 60% of the population is going to be youth. While we understand that entering politics and pursuing the SDGs is one way, as a person who belongs to that space, what is your advice to the youth of the country to pursue some sort of an individual social responsibility? How can they make a difference at their individual level? That's my question. Happy to have your thoughts.
Right. I don't think you're gonna be happy with my thoughts, but because I work with Young India Foundation, I am very biased towards the fact that the way that we individually also make a difference is through politics, right? And that's not necessarily making a career out of politics. And I think that's the sort of fascinating thing. So when we were developing basically the local level and formalizing local level politics within the Constitution in India, I think in 1980 something, please correct me wherever I'm wrong, the way that the Sarpanch Panch and the local level tier basically positions were developed were from the mindset that this isn't something that we want, career politicians to be doing, but rather people in their everyday lives volunteering, contributing 2 to 3 hours of their day as a local punch member, as a local Sarpanch member. Now, I am not telling you that's how it's turned out to be, right? But that was the concept and idea. Just for example, no Sarpanch, no local level tier officials actually get a salary. They get an honorarium. And that's really important to put as a difference, because the concept that, the people that were in charge then, but the concept of local tier governance was never supposed to be about, okay, I'm a so-and-so first name, last name, career politician. I've been in, active politics at a state national level 50 years. No, it was supposed to be about representation. And as you said, there are 650 million people below the age of 30 in India. That's a huge demographic. That's twice the entire population of the United States, just below the age of 30. So when it comes to this everydayness, I do believe that young people, especially with the age constraints of above the age of 21, should be able to contest or should be taking part in politics to make sure that they can implement change. And it's so hard for me personally. And I know I preface this by saying you might not like my answer, but I do think that this ability to bring about change, this impact that we're talking about on an everyday level, you can volunteer, you can join a civic society member, but really bringing about in context to the SDGs, but also in context to getting your voice heard is essential through what I believe local level politics, right? And I don't want you to be doing the netagiri, right? That's not what I'm saying. But we have to kind of reformulate and recognize that politics has been viewed from a very, not just skewed perspective, and sometimes it is justified, but in a very, specific lens. And I think we need to expand that lens. That's why I tend to call it more of representation rather than politics itself, right? And I think, sometimes words are important. And make sure that these people that are, let's say, 23 years old, 29 years old, 35 years old, that are volunteering or have a full-time career but have space to volunteer for 5 to 6 hours per week, 10 hours per week, are able to take small level positions at a local level, right? And take on that owner's ownership and responsibility. And as it, relates to the SDGs, or it doesn't have to relate to them, right? And just making sure that they're able to create a community, but also create an impact within that community at a local level. I think it's easier to do that when you're directly involved in politics rather than trying to start a nonprofit, start a civic, society organization. And it makes it a little bit more confusing. So I would say that I do think that the biggest way to make about that change is to be part in active representation throughout your time that you can volunteer. And think of it from the perspective that the way that this system was created and was supposed to be implemented was based off of that. A volunteer service, you get an honorarium, and it's not supposed to be full-time active career politicians. And all of this I'm talking about at the local tier level.
Hello,
Thank you,
Mr.
Fantastic
Sudhanshu.
answer.
I have a question for you. Mr. Sudhanshu, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, all right. You are saying that means you're trying to, sorry to, but yeah, you are saying that but if youth are engaged in politics and so means you are helping them in politics and other. And I agree with you completely. But yeah, don't you think that entrepreneurship was also equally important compared to politics? Means like you can produce some products and at an affordable rates that can be good for poor people in African nations or something. Like in this pandemic, it has been clear-cut digital divide between rich and poor. Like the poor people, children in Africa hadn't been able to attend school online because they were poor and couldn't afford, all the mobile phones and laptops. So maybe if the entrepreneurs make affordable laptops and mobile phones, like in Indian entrepreneurs or Chinese entrepreneurs that make mobile phones as affordable as $100 to $150 per, and they can perhaps help bridge the digital divide between rich and poor, and also means that could be one way too.
Absolutely, Krish. I agree. But I would say that, my focus is on representation. We have enough and more so, more than more welcome, individuals trying to become the next or the next Mark Zuckerberg. We don't have enough individuals trying to think about how do I become the next Bunch or the next Sponge. And by the way, this digital divide, you're correct. We need more entrepreneurship. We need more technology. We need to ensure that, we can get access to these crowds. But at the same time, whether it's the Odisha government, whether it's the Maharashtra government, whether it's the national government, all these governments have created policies for three things: broadband internet, cheap laptops, and bridging that digital divide that you're talking about. And yet there hasn't been the implementation and impetus to, and obviously COVID has exacerbated that condition. So when you have the technology that already exists, when you have the broadband internet on a theoretical level, and the policies to support that, why hasn't it been supported at a local level? And to me, that understanding is because we don't have good enough people at a local level making sure that implementation exists. So absolutely, I agree. Young people should become entrepreneurs. Young people should be the next technology admins. But I'm focused on making sure that young people can also become representatives. And I think that both can work in tandem to create what this implementation that you're talking about and make sure that people don't get far behind.
So I think maybe that's the problem, maybe due to the problems at bureaucratic level where, inefficiency is there. So that's why means basically meritocrats are the people that bridge the common citizen and the leaders or politicians, those people. So basically we should focus on bureaucratic level because means what do you say of that?
I'm gonna have to ask, are there bureaucrats in this chat? I think that's up to people's interpretation of where they see the lack thereof is. I would say that I see a lack of young people in active politics, and that's what I'm working on. And I think that if we, help more young people get into politics, and I'm not saying I want a certain type of young person, right? I think India is a very diverse country with different ideologies, different way of thinkings, and I would, push for every young person with every different type of ideology set to come out there and create a difference in their own local communities and the people they represent. I think that's the large issue that I work on personally. So I can't comment on anything else. But I can say that within the existing policy framework, within the ramifications of that policy, once we as Young India Foundation were able to get more young people to contest, we saw a substantive difference in daily lives at a local level.
Thank you so much. I'll request everybody else, if you have more questions, you can either put it in the chat box or we'll email sir later. So moving on, thanks a lot, Sudhanshu sir, for joining us and taking out your precious time from your schedule. So Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the SDGs, are a set of global goals drawn out by the United Nations as the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. These goals form an integral part of the UN 2030 agenda and cover a wide range of global issues like climate change, poverty, hunger, global health, quality education, and international peace. It calls upon people, government, institutions, and civil society to work collectively and reach closer to accomplish this global agenda. Youth for SDGs advocates the participation of young people in achieving these goals and channels the voices of future leaders to bring in a change. It hopes to identify youth skills, knowledge, and creativity to develop comprehensive policies. However, the pandemic has posed a setback to the progress made and has exposed the shortcomings of global governance. Therefore, it is incredibly crucial to engage youth for a sustainable build back as the economies reopen. This year on International Youth Day, an annual event observed on 12th of August, we at BRICS CCI invite young people worldwide to put forward their solution for sustainable development. We aim to foster international youth engagement and their role in contributing towards the SDGs. We hope to discuss how youth can contribute towards speeding up achieving the SDGs with a special focus on SDG 17, that is partnerships for the goals. We also intend to identify the scope for expansion of the work and partnerships associated with these goals. We hope to amplify youth engagement by providing them a medium for furthering their voices. With this, we now move on to the most awaited segment of today's event, the panel discussion on the topic SDGs for Youth, a bid for a better future. And for this, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists, Mr. Miguel Santos, CEO at the International Sharing School, Portugal. He is 28 years old and is currently the CEO of International Sharing School in Portugal, an arts investment, a company owning its real estate. He's also the head of board in other companies and is also working with UN Sustainable Development Goals. Next, we have Ms. Lara Martens, Head of B Corps Community at Sistema B, Brazil. She's a specialist in the management of projects by the IAG School of Business and is graduated in social communication with ability in advertising and entrepreneurship. She local articulator and activist in favor of sustainable development. This year, she is one of the delegates of the engagement group for the G20 in the area of innovation, future of the work, and digitization. In 2020, she was selected by the Pope for the event, The Economy of Francesco. Next, we have Ms. Norma Mangona, founder, Norma Mangona Foundation, South Africa. She's a motivational speaker, business executive, director at Zefara Private Limited. Next, we have Ms. Isabella Espindola, IR water researcher and PhD candidate at University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Then Ms. Patricia Zanella, entrepreneur, environmentalist, and researcher from Brazil. She's also the co-founder of EcoCyclo, 2018, a startup producing the first biodegradable sanitary pads in Brazil that aims to reduce the environmental impact of conventional menstruation projects. The company estimates that people who menstruate use 10,000 to 15,000 pads, tampons in their lifetime, and these products take up to 500 years to decompose. Next, we have Ms. Mithali Nikore, economist and policy specialist from India. Mithali is an economist and policy specialist focusing on sustainable infrastructure, industrial development, and gender issues. She has previously worked with the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and United Nations. So a very warm welcome to everybody. The session will be moderated by Mr. Ankit Jam, Senior Associate Director, Capability Development at KPMG and Advisor to the BRICS CCI Young Leaders. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dipana. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome to all the panelists. I understand that people from Brazil had to get up at 7 o'clock. I'm promising you that we'll make this early morning count for you and we'll make it worth. I will ask good questions. I will be at my best, and we'll make sure that the next 45 minutes they pass easily. A quick background of how I'm connected with BRICS and what is my relationship with SDG, my personal relationship with SDG. I run an NGO, I run a social enterprise where we feed people, and that's how I got introduced to the world of SDG. When I started reading about it and I started connected with the cause, I realized that this is the only common language. We can all speak different languages, but when it comes to a common dream, that somewhere in the year 2030, we will belong to a better planet. This is that dream. Yes, there have been academic views and debates, but the fact is that I've come to believe in the ethos and the value which these 17 goals provide us. I also want to share with all of you that sometime back, somebody very intelligent coined a term called Pareto principle, which said that 20% and 80% and 20% of whatever people you will have in an organization will have an 80% impact. Let me turn that around and tell you that right now at this point of time, 18% of the world population is youth, okay, which is supposed to increase and it might hit about 25 to 30%. I see a Pareto principle applying in this place. The world will be ruled by the youth of the country, which is going to be 20%. So the rest 80% of the population is going to be navigated into the future with this 20% of the hands. So I urge all of you, I urge all the participants to be glued to the screens, because if at any point of a time in the history of humanity, if any generation has questioned the meaning of life and the purpose of life, it is this generation. The yesteryear's generation probably went into making the ends meet, but worldwide research suggests that current population of youth is trying to extract meaning. They expect organizations, institutions, and societies to act responsibility to people, responsibility to environment. And that's exactly where the differentiation is. My parting thought and my beginning thought to start the panel with the wonderful team here is that, I was young when I was doing my master's in business administration. I read a book called as The World is Hot, Flat, and Crowded. People with the interest in environment would know that the book was written by Thomas Friedman. He said a beautiful thing, and you must take time to let that sink in. He said that all of us are operating in a mentality of I'll be gone, you'll be gone. And SDGs exactly challenge that. To my mind, the Sustainable Development Goals bring us to a point where they say, I'll be gone, but I will leave a better world for you. And that's my starting point, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome. My name is Ankit Jham. I'm going to be the panelist and the moderator for the session. I hope, fingers crossed, I'll do a great job out of it. So the format is going to be very simple. I'm going to reach out to each of the participants for a very quick opening address. What do you feel by SDG? If there was a personal relationship you had, what is that personal relationship with the Sustainable Development Goals? How do you see the youth of the world population participating in that? So probably you could give a 60 seconds to 90 seconds to 120 seconds of an opening address. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I've had the privilege of researching about you. I've had the privilege of knowing about you through the magnanimous Google, and I have customized certain questions, and we'll probably have a quick conversation around it. So, Patricia, since you're the first one on my screen, I'm going to come for you. Your 90 seconds opening address on the SDG and the role which the youth has to play. Go for it.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk more about me and my company and my relationship with the SDGs. I discovered this during my studies in international relations, and I was working with the fashion industry. So when I discovered how global it was, the fashion industry, and how dangerous it was for people and environmental, and I see all these challenges from slavery to pollution, the rivers and the seas with bad production industry. And the SDGs comment with the Paris conference, I saw this like a way to rethinking or model production, and I decided that I would be like to be part of it. So I did my master degree in international laws, studying how the fashion industry could help us to achieve the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you. I must put in a word that to all the people here, you must go and look at the website of Equal. Would you pronounce that name for us once so that people know this? The organization. EcoCycle.
Perfect.
It's a fantastic concept. It's so inspiring, and I'd spent some 10 minutes reading about it. I request all the participants to go and check what EcoCycle does, and we'll talk about it more. So Patricia, thank you. More force to you for your future. I will come back to you with my questions. In my screen towards my right is Isabel. She's just completed her PhD. Isabel, I have massive respect for people who complete PhD because I had a hard time completing my master's. So when I meet people who've done their doctorate and their PhD, I bow down to them in respect. So congratulations to that. You told me that you're about to finish it. How has been the experience? So much education, so much academia. How has it changed your perspective, and how do you look at SDGs?
So in your first question, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I'm quite excited to be part of this event and to share my experience about it. I have been working with the SDGs since my master's degree, similar to Patricia, but I focus on water issues, so SDG 6. And what I like about it is that everything is connected around water. So if you look into the Agenda 2030, you can see that all the SDGs, they have a part of it that is linked to water. And you mentioned about my PhD and my experience in the academia, and it has been a challenge and a lot of work. It's not easy to do this, especially with the pandemic. So I do feel the same as many of the students that have been facing all the hardships with the pandemic and how they are able to continue their education. But at the same time, I see how important it is to keep pursuing your professional career through education, and how much education is important to our society to face all the challenges that we have with climate change and other environmental issues.
Thank you. Thank you. For the benefit of the larger audience, Isabel specializes in what is called as hydropolitics. Is that right?
Hydropolitics? Yes, it is. So how we can connect water issues with political decisions in all kinds of levels, from international to local ones.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I'm told it's a term which was coined by Waterbury in the year 1979. He wrote a book sometime back, and that's the first time hydropolitics was conceived. So fantastic body of work to all the young guns in this call. Please go find how water politics impacts decisions, economies, and our lives. There is a link, and we'll talk more about that, Isabel. Thank you so much. Miguel, what a fantastic profile. You're 28 years of age. I'm not trying to sell as a matrimonial proposition here, but you're a youth icon. You handle, you lead a school with the most innovative methodology. And I was very impressed with the ISS framework and the IB framework. Why don't you give us your 2 minutes and your humble 2 cents on what is your relationship with SDG and a few messages for the youth. You're on mute.
I think he didn't understand. If you can repeat.
Miguel, can you hear me? You're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go.
I had a little connection issue. Sorry for this. So thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this. It's an honor to be here speaking on such important topics, especially when we are speaking on my case, for example, in education. So for me, the SDGs are something which are pretty much common sense in the end of the day, and I believe they should be for everybody. Nothing on the SDGs is some issue that nobody is aware or so on. So these are things that happen all around the world, not only in underdeveloped countries, even in perfectly first world developed countries. This happens, and I got formally introduced to this when I started working in education, and I was very surprised of how I was not connected into these topics early in my own education. So obviously, in my point of view, and I'm working with kids 4 months old up to 18 years old, and then also working through the university project that we are now developing for 18 years old and older. Maybe to complete the agenda of achieving these goals of the 17 goals by 2030 with the people I work with will be quite difficult. But I believe that we should start preparing them young. So the ones that we leave behind on by 2030, we can continue to develop and continue to fight them, and also keep the spirits up and get them to know how the empowerment works, so that we can achieve not only these 17 goals, but then all the rest of the issues that unfortunately we'll continue seeing. So I look forward to presenting about our project and to letting everybody know how we are working on this with the young generations that will not solve this by 2030, but will solve the other problems that unfortunately will come in the future. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you. Lara, I'm going to come to you. I have been a follower of the ESG concept. I have followed the B Corps concept. In India, we're talking about environmental, social, and governance. We are getting more mature and aware on business models. And I think an organization such as Systema B aligned to B Corps has a massive role to play. They have a role to play in uplifting the consciousness of business. And if you're able to do that, the outcome and the byproduct of that will be a better, safer, more holistic, inclusive society. So congratulations for doing what you do. Why don't you tell us, how do you see a perfect marriage between SDG and the B Corps and what you do? Go for it.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. My first event as advisor of the board of the BRICS. So I work at the Sistema B Brasil, a global movement that works with business. And we are part of the change of the world. We are trying to redefine the concept of success in the economy. And we are not the best companies, business of the world. We are the best companies for the world. So B Corps, here in Brazil and Latin America, we are called as Sistema B, but in the world we are called as B Lab, okay? They are business, more than 4,000 business in the world that are measuring and proving that they are more than having profit, but also solving the social and environmental problems in the world, making positive impact in the planet and for the society. So the connection that I can see between the SDGs and the B Corp are that we have a tool to measure their impact, and in a partnership with the UN Global Compact, we both build a tool connecting all the questions of our B assessment to the SDGs. So when a company are answering our tool, we are linking each impact with each SDG. This tool is called SDG Action Manager. Thank you.
Fantastic. For the uninitiated audiences, let me give a 30 seconds overview on how ESG works. Organizations are expected to perform on environmental, social, and governance metrics. Consider it as the moral compass of the organization. Now, if you want to raise funds, you want to prove your worth to the investors that you will run the business in accordance to environment, in accordance to society, and in accordance to transparency. And that is exactly what B Corps would monitor. That's exactly what B Corps would try and measure. Lara, did I do justice to the explanation?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Norma. I saw Norma somewhere. Yeah, she's there. Norma, could we have you on the video?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear us? Can you see me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, you know, I was thinking that how best can I ask you that question, that you've been a motivational speaker. Your job is to inspire people and get them to action. Is there a 2 minutes motivation pitch for the youth of the country and the youth, whosoever is listening to us, to get motivated to act on the SDGs and get inspired to take action? Over to you.
Thank you for the opportunity. For me, they have to continue the way they are, because if you can look at the youth that we have all over the world, they challenge the existing laws and the status quo. And it's just like when you look at the older generation, we kind of accepted what has been laid as a foundation for us to follow. But if we can encourage the youth, like they have to challenge each and everything that it's been there, so that we can break the chains from the gender equality and SDGs and everything that we think we can take it to another level. If you can look at this girl, I think she's from Sweden, Greta, the one who's talking about, who's an environmental activist. That child is so young. I think she started at 15 or 18 to challenge how people, they pollute the environment, how it's been affected. And I remember I saw one interview with her, what she was doing with Trump, how she was just challenging the Americans. What I like about youth are not scared. They don't have any fear of everything. It's just like they need to be shaped, to be guided by us who has been there. And also they challenge the structures that has been there, laid by the government. And also, as government and as leaders, if we can allow them to be there, because they've got creative ideas and they can challenge that has been laid for us, because most of us, we like to follow what has been put on the system. I'm from South Africa. If you can look at our, the whole, I think the government, like from the president all the way down, you can see all those people are older. And it's nicer to have them because they have experience. But now we need like fresh ideas. We need people who can challenge that. We need people who can bring innovation. We need people who can just bring new ideas. And also we work together to give the balance, because youth alone can't do anything on their own. Also the old people as well, they need to accept that they can't do anything alone, because also we're so advanced in technology. We're traveling the world. We've seen things. So why don't we come together? So for me, I think we need to encourage the collaboration between older generation and the younger generation to set up the new goal, because all of us, we have the goal of success. That's all of us were about. So that's what I can say.
Thank you. Thank you, Norma. Thank you so much. More about what you do for children and gender equality when I ask you questions. Very impressive work there. Mitali, is Mitali there? Mitali. Pankna, was Mitali able to join us?
She did. Just let me check.
She's there, but
yeah, Mitali's there. Mitali's there.
I'll just text her. Maybe we can move on.
Just text her. Yeah. Just let me know once she's back. I will take her viewpoints very quickly. Okay, so thank you for that quick opening address, and I'm going to follow the same sequence, which means I'm going to now go back to Patricia and then start with my questions. So Patricia, biodegradable sanitary pads, that's a world of a change for people. There is a change in habit, there is a change in mindset, there is a change in belief system, there is a change in attitude. Okay. And sometimes the world has the change has to start right at the bottom in those areas where education, information, and knowledge doesn't reach. Okay, because that's where the problem might be. The fact of the matter is that it's difficult. Okay, in a constantly changing world like ours, how have you coped up with these challenges in the last 2 years, and how do you see the youth contributing to the mission which you've embarked upon?
Thank you so much for the answer. So what I see that is happening now, it is an increasing, like a trending for more youths acting, doing social business. So this is one of our answer as youth to lead with the things with a different way. We already know as the SDGs have as goal that is not enough. The thinking and the way that all the industry and all the international community is working. We need to change these things with a more collaborative and more collaborative and more sharing way to do the things. So now with EcoCiclo, we are a lot of things more than just sanitary pads. We are creating a community, all an ecosystem for women entrepreneurs, for generating income, for women in social vulnerability, not just in Brazil, but also with city diplomacy and engaging with accelerations all around the globe to understand how people are doing different business and how can we do this here and teaching other women to do the same. So we talk about a lot around sustainable entrepreneurship, and I see that this is one thing that just the youth could be able to be addressing, because we are able to see the things in a creative way. So I see that the challenge that we are facing now as countries is see that when we are talking about sustainable development goals, we are in the same path. Anyone already achieved all the goals, so we need to work together. And for do this, I see city diplomacy, the ESG, and social business as one way of different initiatives that could support this goal. And for encourage youth, I guess that is really important. I always say that we need to support them with women rights and have sure that everyone have access to internet, because this is not happening yet, and we are really far for activities. Here in Brazil, we have 25% of the population without access to internet. So we need to change these things for all the youth being encouraged and empowered to do something, to take an action.
Fantastic. You know, it's so imaginative and innovative in many ways. Completely rethinking waste management, linking it to the millennials' new age fashion of using mobile phones and digital account and currencies, and then linking it to the finances. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I was reading up that website, and it's such a fantastic idea. And in that, now I get it that internet penetration makes so much of a difference. For the idea to germinate, one must have that basic internet penetration. I'm going to come back to you and ask you about the role of the youth in a bit. While I move to Isabella. Did I get your name right? Is the pronunciation right?
It is Isabella. You're right.
Fantastic.
You got it.
So, thank you. My name's also a little difficult, but I tell people that I'm addressed as AJ. If Ankit Jham
AJ.
looks a little complicated, AJ is absolutely simple.
Perfect,
So,
AJ.
thank you. So my question to you is that water research, hydropolitics, this is a very niche area. Not many people venture into this, in my knowledge. First, tell us that. Explain to the youth that how is their life getting affected by hydropolitics, number one, and then tie it back to how will it make a better planet in the 2030? How does it secure our lives? And show us that bridge for us to understand. Over to you.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, water is a connector and it is part of our daily lives, our activities. It is essential to our development. So without water, we cannot do anything at all. We are depending on water. But at the same time, we are facing a lot of challenges in terms of water scarcity, access to water, human right to water, how we can improve our water management systems, how we can adapt them to water climate effects that we are seeing. So we have floods happening in Europe, droughts here in Brazil and other places around the world. So how the political decisions that are being made related to water are considering these threats, these challenges, because if they are not considering it, they are not taking also into consideration the needs of the population. And this affects all our activities. So without water, without our governance paying attention to it, how can we drink water? How can we have access to water and sanitation infrastructures? And Patricia mentioned about the needs from young women. It's the same to water. Without access to water, they are not able to do their hygiene, and especially during their menstrual period. So this is something that has to be taken into consideration. And at the same time, we have that water can be related to cooperation among nations and to conflict among nations. If they don't collaborate and they are sharing the same resource, they will probably start discussions and conflicts because they are using the same water. And this is happening all over the world. We have situations in India, we have situation in Africa, in Middle East, here in South America. So this is something that really should be part of our daily lives. You're muted.
We've had a similar situation between India and Pakistan also. So people would be able to relate to that it does affect the daily fabric of life. But thank you so much. I will come back and we'll have more chat around this. Miguel.
Yes, AJ.
Hey. So ISS, fantastic. From 4 months to 18 years, there are 3 programs. There is a vision which IB's had, and you're following the IB framework. You're completely reimagining education. And I was looking through the website and I saw there is culture, there is love, and there is knowledge. Absolutely fantastic. No one's thinking like that. It's a very unique pedagogical method, and I understand that you're working on that. Talk to us about how all of this ties to the dream of 2030, because I'm assuming that the kids you are teaching right now, they would be grown up and they will be the flag bearers of the planet. What is your dream for this population and how are you going to make it possible?
Yeah, thanks, AJ. So as I said a little bit earlier on, some of the people that we are teaching right now, so let's say grades 10, 11, 12, that in the next 8 years will be able to make a difference, obviously. But we believe that all of them in a certain way are able to make a difference. So to make a difference, as we have seen, and for the example that Norma said of Greta, it's not really about about your age that will allow you to make a difference and to make your voice heard in the world. And so we want to train our young students, first of all, bring these topics to their attention, and then have them also work on this. This is something that we do, that we start from a very young age. So starting on the 3 years old, we start working around some of these topics, and then out of the 17 goals, as the years go by, we will introduce them depending on the maturity and the age that the kids are on, and so on. And so in the end of grade 5, the PYP 5 have an exhibition, which is a presentation that they need to do on one of the SDGs, and then explain a little bit what were the inquiries, what did they understand about this, and so on. And then we see some very interesting conclusions by the kids, where they pick a topic and then they understand that, okay, one of these goals, one of the things that they understand is that by themselves, this goal is small. So all these goals are connected. And so what we need to do with this younger generation is develop their mentality and develop this sustainable mindset to be able to make this change in the future. And making a change for the younger kids would be to influence the ones who actually have the power to take action. So the parents, the family, the communities which they are in. And so our goal is to bring this topic up for the kids, have the kids work on it, have the kids pass it on to the older generations, who are the ones that nowadays can make a big difference and can take action more easily. So yeah, this is what we have been working on. We have a very complete pedagogical program, very different from I would say. We use the IB as a framework. So the IB is like the skeleton of our school, and then we build the body around it. So the IB for us is just a little, not a little bit, it's an important guidebook that guides us through this. And so this is what we are working with. We have a complete program that is working on not only the academic ability, so the hard skills. Let's say we have focused a lot on the soft skills as well. Not saying that one is more important than the other. We just put them both at the same level and work on the soft skills, not only developing the IB learner profile, but also developing some other forms of developing the kids.
Fantastic. Thank you, Miguel. I'll come back to you and we'll talk more about what are the challenges people face when it comes to providing education for all, because that I understand is one of the goals as well. So thank you so much for that. You can take a deep breath now. So Lara, we're at this point of time crowded by startups. And most startups, I understand, are run by people who are 20, 21, 22, 24, maybe 25. Okay. And that's the average age, maybe they last for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. You might have seen a lot of these, you might have heard about them, you might have worked with them from a governance, environmental responsibility point of view. What are the challenges startups are facing? What kind of a state of mind you must have which ties up to the SDGs and then run a business? That's my question to you.
Thank you. So yes, I have been working with entrepreneurship, youth, and the SDG for more than 5 years. And when we provide education, quality education for the children and the youth, we can see them building startup, new business, focusing the social and the environmental challenge that we are facing. So when the youth create new business, they are not thinking only to survive into the financial issue. They are also thinking, as Patricia, as Rodrigo, as Barbara, as Ana Luisa, the Earth champion for the UN. They are thinking about water, they are thinking about human rights, they are thinking about the feminism, they are thinking about the poor regions of Brazil and the world. So they are taking the SDG agenda, as you said before, as a framework to build the better now and the future. According to the definition of sustainable development, guarantee the necessities, the needs of this generation without thinking on the future generation. So stimulating the youth to build new business is stimulate a better future for everyone.
In the next conversation, I'd like to talk about that. If somebody was to start a business, how can at the inception they instill SDGs into their business model? And that's a question I'm parking with you, but I'd like to know more from you when I come back to you in the next round. That's my personal interest area, that if the business starts with the SDGs in mind, you will never go wrong. It's only a problem when you run business for profit and then midway there is a sudden spiritual realization that you have to align to SDGs. Then the alignment is only transactional and cosmetic. The value system alignment, to my knowledge, is very important for entrepreneurs. So we'll talk more about this, Lara, when I come back to you. I want to go to Norma, if Norma is there. Norma is there. Norma, could we have you on video if it's okay? Norma, in case you're talking, you're on mute.
Norma, can you hear us? I think she's having some network issues.
Maybe I'll come back and I'll try and loop in Mithali in the meantime. Mithali, I saw you joining in. Are you there?
Yeah,
Did
hi.
we have you on the video?
I'm sorry for the delay. Hi.
Hey, Mithali. I'm still trying to locate where are you? Oh yes, Norma's also there. Mithali's there. Hey, Mithali, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well, Mithali. Thank you. So I missed you when I was taking an opening address. So now I have two asks. One is, what's your personal equation with the concept of SDGs? That's what we've all shared. And my second ask is that you've done a lot of work in India, in UP and Rajasthan in the space of infrastructure. And I hear and I read that you're working on the freight rail part of the plan also. Talk to us about how is it that the youth of the country at this point of time can contribute in building infrastructure. Is there a direct correlation or it's still fantasy for people? Over to you, Mithali.
Thanks, Ankit. And I mean, I feel like this discussion is very topical today in light of the IPCC report, which came out just 2 days ago. And I'm sure we've all seen the findings and we've all seen that, we're heading to a place of no return. And therefore, it's extremely important for us to actually focus on something that in the multilateral world, we call climate resilient infrastructure. Where we're not just building railways or roadways for the sake of building infrastructure, but actually building, energy efficient infrastructure or infrastructure which can withstand very, very, which were earlier, black swan events, but have become more common now. So, why can we build more flood shelters? Can we build more cyclonic, shelters? Can we build railway tracks which won't get blown off when you have cyclones very often, or, heavy winds and rain and things like that? So, these are concepts that the World Bank and ADB, where I'm consulting, are both looking at very, very seriously. A lot of multilateral donors are looking at this seriously. And what the youth can do in all of this is, when there is an infrastructure, like when I look at the RA forest and the way the youth came out and sort of started supporting the fact that it should not be destroyed and that it should be, sort of conserved. I think, earlier there was this focus that environmental social assessment was a necessity when we're building infrastructure projects. But now it's not just a necessity, it should be actually part of the program design. And it is because of youth activism that attitude towards that environmental assessment will change. And also when we're talking about freight transport, this is a very important discussion, because all of us love our Amazon packages, right? I mean, that's how we live now. We don't go out and shop. We order online and then we also return it, right? So that all has a very direct environmental impact. So I think it really comes from the youth, and what kind of shoppers are we going to be? And in order to design for those demands in an environmentally sustainable way, youth has to engage with companies like Amazon, with companies like Flipkart, etc., to say that, yes, we want these services, we obviously do, and they're available to us, but we will use them responsibly. So in the context of the SDGs, infrastructure is actually central and youth centric, because as we move forward, we have to make infrastructure development very climate resilient. So I'll stop there.
No, I think fantastic. That term climate resilient is, I think it's a very profound term, and one must stop for a minute to appreciate the gravity that we are living in an unprecedented, unpredictable world, and sometimes lives are vulnerable. And if there is any predictability which is offered to our lives, sometimes it's offered by the word climate resilience. There is, of course, an element, and everyone keeps talking about mental resilience, but I think one needs to look at infrastructure from a resilience point of view also. So Mitali, thank you so much for touching that chord. I will come back and we'll talk more about this. Norma is there. Norma, my research tells me that you work with children and you sponsor education. You're trying to uplift their quality of life. I also understand that you're trying to help the cause of gender equality. Now, these are areas which are so deep rooted sometimes in the society that you find yourself, if this was Game of Thrones, you're fighting against a dragon. Okay, if I were to put it metaphorically, how has been the battle? How has been the fight so far? And where do you see youth enabling you fighting that battle of gender equality?
I think a lot of things we have to run a lot of campaigns because what I've seen with the kids that we work with, the culture has played a big role in terms of nurturing a young boy and a young girl differently. So now when we talk about like young women and a young girl, like maybe the age of 21 to 25. So the culture, when you look at how back in the days, how we install them, we tend to cage them. And also we tend to raise them differently. A young boy mustn't do this, a young girl must do this, and you mustn't do this. So now, when we go to offices, we go to boardroom, we want to take up the spaces and we want to lead in positions. Now that also still come in. Now you are a woman, you wanna put a point on the table, but now you see an old man. So the minute you look at that, you're scared because you know what, so we oppress ourselves by not seeing that it's us who are oppressing ourselves, because now we come from cultures. I'm Zulu, and I grew up in a place where they say, like, as a young woman, you don't speak like that. As a young woman, you don't say that, you don't dress like this. So now when you are given a space where you need to hold a position, you need to lead, that comes in your mind first. You know, like, firstly, I'm addressing adults, but now in the workspace, there's no gender, you know, in the workspace, there's no age, there's nothing. You need to be yourself, and you need to have boardroom etiquettes. But now the culture has already put the foundation of you to follow that. So also when it comes to, because we are so scared of adults, especially the men, because they are the head of the household. But now when it comes to the sexual harassment, you know, the minute, like you say, like, I'm being harassed by my uncle, you know how the family will take that. But now you take that, you put it in an office. Now you are sexually harassed by the boss, and now you are so scared. And it comes even in university. So I think we need to have like a lot of awarenesses where we want our kids to be free, because all the countries right now, we're in the stage where all of us, we feel like we're free, but we're not free. Because if a woman is still oppressed, if we see a young man like can't express himself. So you are a young man, but you are so scared of talking. You are so scared of saying you're not free anymore. Once you are free, for me, you need to be able to say how you feel. You need to express your feelings. You need to tell people, we can't do this like this way. This is my contribution on the table. But once you have this thing of, I can't say 1, 2, 3 because of the culture. I can't say 1, 2, 3 because people, they're going to judge me. I can't say so. We're still living in this background of the oppression. Like, we are free, but we are not free. And also, I've seen 2 years ago, I started running like a project where we're grooming a young boy. Because when you look at, especially, I will talk about South Africa because this is the country that I grew up and I'm exposed to. When you look at the violence, like the rape stats, like a lot of men are so angry, you know? Even when you look at the position, there's a lot of men who are there because they think if, as women, we come in, we own up the spaces, they think it's a competition. They feel like it's intimidation, which is not like that. And also the violence, like the minute as a woman, I'm saying something, they're in defense. Men are so in defense because they were not given a chance to express themselves. So if as a young man, you express yourself, people take it as a sign of weakness, which is not a sign of weakness. This is who you are. The minute you can't lead with a free mind, you just can't lead at all. So I'm running this with like men because I don't know how from being a young man to be a father, fatherhood and manhood, how it goes. So I have like 5 men who are in business in different ways, in different organizations where we come together. Then I said, okay, for them to lead, to be successful, because you can have all the money, but now you can't lead, you can't talk to people. You don't have that connection because you saw your father when it comes at home. Like if we can take back, maybe all of us, we've seen that. Like our grandfathers, our fathers, when they come home, they just read papers. The father sit there, the mother serve them. There's no connection. As much as you provide for your family financially, but you don't talk to them, their feelings. There's no connectivity between the kids and the father. So that what happens when they're older, they still like that. So they're in a defense mode because they feel like I'm gonna be attacked. So even women as well, because now back in the days, we've seen a lot of men being in position. So now we have a privilege in this generation to be in position, but the problem is we don't know how to lead. So if you can look at a lot of women, when they're in position, we become so aggressive. They must feel me because I'm Norma, I'm a woman, I'm the CEO. You need to clap hands for me when I take the space. Leadership is not like that. You don't have to use power. You don't have to be aggressive to lead. But it's just like all those things we need to run awarenesses to teach young girls. Power mustn't come in a force. Power mustn't come in a violence. Power mustn't come by oppressing another person. Even government does that as well. So we're so scared of taking spaces because the culture played a role. So how can we change that? We need to run an awareness, like we start at home as a father, in a small family, in your neighborhood, when we do our gatherings. We need to teach young girls and young boys, this is how it should be. So that when they go in the office, they go in the world to represent the country and the community, they are free. But now, no matter, you can appoint someone to go address, they're scared of you as a father at home. They are scared of the community. They're not free, but we are free. So we still need to break those chains, and it's still a long way. So that had been a battle for me because we have a lot of kids who want to lead, who want to express themselves, but the culture, all of us, doesn't allow us because we just tend to follow things. And we are in a space where now I'm challenging everyone. Let's allow youth to be youth and let's support them and say, this is it. You can say this without any fear. Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Very, very inspiring. And Norma, allow me to share, and maybe you give the details that I think Norma has been awarded by New York 2020 for the year 2021 as Woman of the Year. I was, of course, reading about you and I saw your Instagram handle. So congratulations on that. Maybe 30 seconds on what the award is and how the facilitations happened.
So when I did that, like I think it was in 2016, I was invited by Michelle Obama to come in New York. And also as South African youth, We wanted to bring the STEM. I wanted to bring a lot of young women and young girls to have the STEM. I wanted like all of them to have access in technology, access in books, access in education, because I grew up in a village where all those things were not there. I wanted to be a pilot, but I couldn't be a pilot because I didn't know where to go. So I opened different projects. Then I put a lot of people together, and I was so hands-on on the ground. And then they see my foundation, they've seen my work, and a lot of I raised at different bursaries from different companies. So I took different kids to different countries where I've never been, because I don't have to take you where I've been, because I've been there. So you can be there because there's an opportunity. Just do it for us, do it for the country, do it for the world. So they've seen all the work, and they decided to award me, like I think it was just a few months ago. So they gave me that award. I think it was one in April during my my birthday month. Yeah, it was about that. It's to honor the work that I've been doing.
Fantastic! Congratulations on that. Many congratulations. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Now, I'm gonna give this a very interesting turn, and I'm going to ask all the panelists that if SDGs are a common language, there is also another common language. I worked in different continents, and I realized that this common language works everywhere. It's called Marvel Comics. How many people, I just have to raise your hand and tell me, how many people have seen Avengers? Yeah, so Isabel is a fan, Mitali is a fan, Patricia, I'm assuming that you've seen Avengers. Miguel, I'm assuming that you've also seen Avengers. Samir has seen Avengers. Okay, so Marvel Comics has turned out to be a global language. And the first time I realized that COVID is like Thanos. We haven't understood anything about it. It's supposed to wipe off half the population, or at least it's attempting to wipe off half the population. Bad example, but the fact is that I saw Avengers and then COVID happened. So my question actually originates from Avengers, and it roots and resides in what pandemic has done to us. The question is fairly simple, and I'd like to seek your opinion very quickly in 60 seconds. The Thanos called as pandemic and the COVID dented our dreams and aspirations. It also dented to a large extent the progress countries were making on SDGs. And I'm very sure it has impacted your own personal goals, your own personal visions, whether it's school, whether it's just penetration of biodegradable sanitary napkins, whether it's the research, or Mitali, what you do, and Norma, what you do. So in a 60 seconds to 90 seconds, tell me, how did the pandemic affect you, and how did you become the Avenger and you bailed yourself out of it? So I need a 60 seconds crisp, quick answer. And as usual, Patricia, I'm going to come to you and start with you.
Okay, so the pandemic, it was really challenging. It was the worst part of my life. I did a lecture with Lara in Portuguese, and I told that everything that should be able to go wrong in the life of someone gets wrong with my life. I was fired. My company was without any kind of money to produce. We aren't able to receive the raw materials that we bought because of everything closed. My boyfriend woke up with me, so everything got wrong with the pandemic. And we decided we sit together, me and my partners, and we will be not able to produce sanitary pads now. So what can we do for help all these women that was already producing sustainable products and are from the periphery like us? How can we support them during this process? And we developed a project that is the Marketplace Ecociclo. Our marketplace was launched on June, 2 months ago. It is a marketplace just with sustainable products, handmade by women in social vulnerability. So we think about this. We start to dream about it 1 year ago, 1 year and a half ago, when everything starts. And to see now that we follow this path and the things got right, and we active a lot of prize and grants and are being able to developing our sanitary pads to start the sale in this semester. It's like a dream coming true, and it's just possible because the world are really seeing the SDGs as something really important and that could be able to change lives. So when we are talking about social business impact, we are talking about changing lives and about how can we create a better ecosystem for all. So it was like challenge, but now really inspiring because we are doing great things.
But you've clearly done well. You look stronger and you look more happier. I wish you a great life, and I also wish you an excellent love life. I didn't break up because I was married to my wife.
I would like to add our team always talk on this phrase, this quote, that is sustainability is take care of people. So we take care of the sustainability of the environment to take care of you. So EcoCycle is about it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for opening up, Patricia. But I want to honestly confess that one of the things which got tested in COVID were relationships. And I think a part of us emerged stronger, more wiser, more evolved, and more self-aware of who we are. So that's the blessing in disguise, though. But yeah, we still could have done without it. We could have become more self-aware without the pandemic, but that wasn't the plan of whosoever was crafting the universe. But thank you, Patricia. I will come back with the second, third round of questions, so you can take it easy by then. Isabella, how did the pandemic impact you, your personal goals, aspirations, and then how did you move forward? Since you're an Avenger fan, also try and tell me that your favorite superhero, Captain America, Iron Man, who was it?
So when the pandemic started, I was living abroad. I was living in London. So everything that I felt there, it was really overwhelming. And then I moved back to Brazil. And sadly, the pandemic hits my family. My father got COVID, my mother got COVID. It was a really hard period for us. But everything went well, and they're both safe and recovered from COVID. So I think that this is how it directly affected me, because it was inside my house. And even with us taking all the procedures and all the measures to stay safe, but it is spreading really bad in Brazil. So we lost a lot of friends, we lost a lot of family members. And this is something that we have to remember, because the politicians, they could do more and they didn't. And so the result is the crisis that we are facing right now. But I think that for me, it was in terms of resilience and trying to stay safe as much as possible, and how could I ensure that my mental health was also safe during this period, this crisis. And about Marvel, I have a lot of characters that I love it, and I just watched the one with like watching all again. But you know, Loki has my heart with it, and the series is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the next Marvel series on Disney.
Fantastic. I like Loki too, especially the part where he says, "I'm burdened with glorious purpose." Pretty much goes with stories of our lives also. Not burdened, but we're happy taking a glorious purpose. So thank you, Isabella. I will come back. Thank you for sharing your experience. Miguel, ISS has an ambitious vision to provide education. There is no replacement to in-person learning. There is no substitute to learning with peers and with people. That got dented, that got impacted and affected. How did ISS cope up with that challenge, and how did you manage the consistency and sustainability?
Yes, I mean, as you said, definitely there is basically no other way to provide all of the contents and all. I mean, for us, education is not just reading the book, memorizing chapter 1, get to the end of chapter 1, write it down, forget about it, start chapter 2, do the same all over again. So for us, our goal is to provide a full educational experience, which is very difficult if we are not face-to-face. So obviously for us, this was a challenge. We did cope with it quite well in an operational way, let's say. We started seeing how the pandemic was evolving in the Eastern countries before it hitting Europe and Portugal on the end of Europe. But we started seeing how it would quickly spread and get to us as well. Around February, we started to develop a hybrid education system where parents who were starting to stress a lot with the pandemic and so on, we gave them the option to stay home and we started to implement this system where kids from home could watch the classes that were happening live. And so the teacher would be giving a class to the students who were at home and in school simultaneously. So we took this for 2 weeks. We did all the mistakes that we had to do in these 2 weeks. We messed it up big time. We found everything that didn't work. We managed to figure it out. And then eventually, I mean, after 2 weeks, panic levels were through the roof. We had to focus on dealing with parents and not providing the education. And so we said, okay, let's just shut down, pass everybody into the online system. And then it was smooth sailing from there on. A couple of days later, the government ordered all schools to close, to shut down. We were already used to this online system. We had already did our trial and error. And so we managed to transition into it. Obviously, we had the rest of the year was all online. This had a big impact on the learning of the kids, not only on the kids on our school, but we also welcomed a lot of new students in September when we opened the doors again. And we can see how they fell behind in their educational path due to these 6 or 8 months of online learning. And so this is really not the ideal scenario for us. We managed to overcome it with a huge effort from all our team. Teachers did a fantastic job. We managed to overcome it the best way possible, but obviously we know that it's not the ideal case. We have developed, in the meantime, a hybrid system that we have perfected. We have invested a lot in technological equipment, in the rooms, in the administration, for the teachers and so on. So nowadays, we still have this hybrid system where if you get sick and you cannot come to school, if you have to travel for some reason, if you get stuck in your country, if for some reason your visa is not ready or so on, the kids can not lose the content. They can start classes. We have interactive boards where everything that happens on the board is mirrored on the student's computer. And then we have eagle eye cameras in the classrooms to film the classroom. And so our goal is to bring this classroom experience home to the students who are at home. But then once again, this is the best that we can do in this case. It's not obviously the ideal scenario. And it's not, for sure, it's not a long-term solution. So it's a quick fix, but nothing like having the kids in school and having all this mess around.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's hope and wish that the good times come back and some kind of normalcy starts to appear in our lives. So, but thank you. All the best, Miguel. Thank you for the answer.
Thanks, AJ.
Vitali, you still there? Vitali, you around? I think Mitali is taking a break and she'll be back, fingers crossed. Lara, I'm going to come to you. Same question. Systema would have a vision, they would have plans. Those plans would tie up with the larger vision of the organization. How did pandemic dent and impact?
Hi, Ankit, can you hear me? Sorry.
Hey, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Sorry, I moved on to Lara. Allow me to come back to you, and
yes,
I will ask you. Thanks. So yeah, so how did pandemic impact the organization's vision, and how did the organization cope up, specifically when it comes to staying true to what you want to do, which is to make organizations better, to ensure that the environment, the organizations are managing their environmental, social responsibilities better. How did you cope up with that, Lara?
Thank you. So we are business network, so impact a lot. As Patricia said, we have to frozen the dollar because we have an annual fee to the business to have the CEO of B Corps, and we had to be very emphatic to the business because, for example, we are not in the beginning of the pandemic anymore, but we are still facing problems to the food and the plantation and production of some foods here in Brazil. So it will affect the business. And as we are a global movement, we will collaborate with collaboration. So we build a platform to fund money, to raise money to the companies, support them in this difficult moment. And also we build a platform to share knowledge, to share good practice around the world. So it's called interdependency, and all the business, all the big corps could share the good practice. So as the pandemic started in first, or it was heard first in the Europe, in Italian, and then so on, the businessmen and women start to share with us here in Brazil, and we could prepare the network better and with the good press that they had there. So we work together as a community. So no competition, and sharing knowledge and partnership, and with flexibility to continue together, and we are together. Brazil has more than 200 B Corps, Latin America more than 700. So we are a movement that supports each other.
I think what I clearly hear is this feeling of togetherness, and that communities coming together was the point which made a lot of sense to me. So thank you, Lara, for contributing that. Mithali, I have a specific question. Since you're an economist and you do a lot of work in the space of policy, the last 18 months of our lives, which is called as pandemic, would have taken us back when it comes to the SDG goals by at least a few years. So whatever we were trying to achieve by the year 2030, it might have been hit badly. So my question to you is that, A, do you agree, yes, it has taken us back, and how do we come out of this setback? How do we still stay on course when it comes to the SDGs? That's my question to you.
So no, absolutely, Ankit. It has taken us back on so many parameters. You know, when the first one, the most obvious one, and the one that I'm personally most passionate about is gender equality. We have seen that through this pandemic, women are more likely to lose their jobs. The sectors where women are employed are the ones where the pandemic has hit the hardest. You know, high contact sectors, beauty, retail, services, textiles, hospitality. These are all sectors which have a preponderance of women employees, and they have lost their jobs. We have read stories, and in fact at Nicole Associates, my think tank, we've conducted consultations with over 60 women's organizations, and we've learned stories of how women and girls who were going to school have now dropped out because it's been more than almost 2 years since schools have been closed, and also because the fact is that governments are restricting guests at weddings. Child marriages have become more common because it's cheaper now to marry your daughter off. There's no pressure to invite a large gathering, and you know how Indian weddings are. So this is, I mean, much more, I mean, of course, it's a global phenomenon, but much more prevalent in India, where we had actually seen a resistance to child marriage, and even amongst parents of girls wanting to get their girls married more and more and more over the last few decades, to the extent that the gender parity index of education in India had exceeded 1, as in more girls were enrolled at the primary and secondary level. And now, it's gone back because of the pandemic and the fact that it's so difficult to get jobs for women now. And the value of education has gone down. Health, of course, the kind of health services that women were able to access, reproductive health services, have been disrupted across the world. And it has become impossible. So these are I'm just taking this as a case study to say that you pick up any SDG and you will see the disruption. And the most important SDG which has been disrupted is poverty eradication. We have created so many more poor in the last 1 year than the eradication which has happened in the last decade. So we have a new class of people who have always been in the middle class, who are today finding themselves in poverty, but not counted amongst the poor based on poverty lines that are currently defined, and therefore unable to access government support. Say for example, take the example of a taxi driver. He's never been a poor person before, but today he feels that he's only able to afford 1 meal a day. So these are, pandemic poverty is a reality. And in order for us to actually get out of this situation, we need to do 3 or 4 very important things quickly. The first is the governments need to redefine poverty lines. We need to come up with a new modern definition of what does it mean to be poor, so that we can extend and expand social protection programs. The second is that we have to mainstream gender equality in every sector. So whether it comes to work, whether it comes to education, the correction of sex disaggregated data, the idea that you need to have special programs for women and to bring them to the fore has to just become normal and default. We have to stop thinking that, oh, we're doing something for women and that's going beyond. No, that's just basic. So we have to do that. And the third is that we have to start thinking about the environment as a real threat. We have to start costing the actual environmental impact. I'll give you an example. When you build, say for example, you built a station and the next day there was a cyclone and the entire station was destroyed. It cost you $10 million to build the station, and now that's gone. That's not just a financial cost, it's also an economic cost, because you could have used that 10 million for something else and spent it on something better, which was more climate resilient, as we discussed earlier. So it's important that we mainstream this thinking of economic loss and the risk to GDP because of unpredictable economic events and environmental disasters. We have to just calculate our GDP as a number which takes into account the predicted environmental loss for the year. And you can't just say, oh, today India is producing something and it's a $3 trillion economy and in 5 years it will become a 5 trillion. No, you don't know, because the environment is such that you could lose 500 billion in a year because of cyclones and other threats, earthquakes, etc., heat waves that India faces, and rising sea levels. So, this is extremely important.
Fantastic. Very, very valid point made. I completely agree with the definition of BPL and below poverty line needs to get redesigned. And then we'll have a different world looking at us altogether. The point on how economic progress sometimes is confused with happiness index or social progression absolutely is flawed, and statistics can be confusing. So I'm with you there. I'm conscious of time, and Isabel had to leave because she had a meeting. I want to go to Norma and quickly take her view, and then we'll try and run towards a closure. So Norma, if you're there.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. So very quickly, I want to place the question and have your thoughts that your work is at a ground level. You have to be at the ground level with the women and with the kids. How did pandemic impact you, and how did you keep the flame alive? Very quick answer.
Yeah, it has affected the project big time because of the number, the restrictions, because we can't put kids more than 100. And also we needed help from the government of the mask, the sanitizer. It was a lot of things. So right now we have to distribute the books, but now because of the number, we can't. So we just need to just drop the books without any motivation, without giving them any mandate, because the number doesn't, because now we're back on level 3. So it doesn't allow us to engage with the kids because of the, so it's very bad, if I can put it that way.
Understand. I'm conscious of time and now want to give the chance to the participants to ask questions. We already have a question. The question typically can be answered and taken up by anyone. So one of the questions which...
Yeah, a very good evening, sir. I want to...
Prince, one second, Prince, give me a second. I have a question. I'm going to pull that up. In the meantime, send me the question and I'll pull it up for you. Okay. I'm just trying to moderate to make sure that our panelists answer all the questions. So be with me, send the question, and then I'll get your question answered. In the meantime, there's a participant called as Diksha. She's asking a question and she's saying that, what are the main challenges in achieving sustainable development? And Mithali, you did answer this partly, but if anyone wishes to add to that, what is a main challenge, one main challenge only in achieving sustainable development? Anyone could go for this.
Yeah, the one main challenge we face when we compare to...
Prince, hold on. The question is for the panelists. I will come to you. Hold on for a second. Yeah, so Mithali, maybe if you want to take a shot, Miguel, you want to take a shot. One challenge which we are facing when it comes to sustainable development.
I think the one main challenge we're facing, Ankit, is that, at this point, there are still a lot of climate deniers. I think that's the biggest challenge that we're facing. And I just love the fact that the IPCC report is actually a report which is now agreed by 195 countries to say that, we unequivocally say that yes, climate change is a result of human activities and we are all collectively responsible. But having said that, I completely agree with the stand of the government of India on this, and also echoed by a number of emerging economies, that at some level we developed countries also have to take the responsibility of being the early polluters. So while we have, today developing countries may be characterized as the larger producers, and definitely China and India are often called out for that. But the developed economies also have to take responsibility for being early polluters, and the per capita level of emissions is also a very important metric to look at. Not that per capita level of emissions is any more sustainable, like whatever we have to reduce that as well. And the second issue is recycling. When we look at our oceans, when we look at our electronic waste, when we look at the way industrial parks and manufacturing is currently going on, especially in India, where we are not using circular economic principles despite them being available. So, the adaptation is the challenge now, and we have to make that mainstream and work on that and create very, very stringent regulations to literally save ourselves.
Very nicely articulated. Miguel, do you want to say something?
Yeah. I'd like just to add a little topic as well. I mean, apart from what Mithali already said, I believe that one of the biggest challenges is that the whole basis of the society, of our economies and everything has been built in a non-sustainable way. And so this means that, as been said before, having to adapt something will never work as well as creating something for that from the start follows a certain type of principles. So one of the big challenges is for some organizations, for some countries, for some governments, maybe it looks such a big job that we don't even know where to start sometimes, because the basis for this. The basis was not created for this. It was created to fulfill another purpose. And now, okay, while we try to fulfill this purpose, let's try and be more sustainable. Let's try and tackle gender equality. Let's try and tackle all these issues. Not that it will not work. It will be more expensive. It will require much more resources. It will require much more efforts. And so I believe that this is one of the big challenges that we face in creating more sustainable structures.
Fantastic. Well, this brings us to the end of this wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, each one of you, for joining in. Thank you for your views. Thank you, sharing for insights, your experiences from the past. I'm going to send some comments which Prince has sent us on the main chat pod for all of you to read. He has certain ideas. Prince, I'll make sure that your message reaches the audiences, but our panelists have time constraints and they need to move on. So thank you so much. My closing note to all of you is this was absolutely fantastic way to talk about SDGs. And I'm going to quote Avengers once again before I end this. Vision in one of the movies, one of the part of Avengers says that there is grace in human failings. Then Captain America in the other movie says that how do we fight this out? He says together. And towards the end of it, he says assemble. So that's what my parting thought to all of you is, that let's assemble together to fight this out. And I hope that next time when we meet, this is in person and we are not talking through Zoom, but we are doing this live. So wishes and prayers to all of you, to families, stay safe and be good. Thank you so much, everyone. Dipangana, over to you.
Thank you so much, first of all, to Ankit sir for always being the best moderator ever. And thank you for hosting the panel. Each and everyone joining this extremely insightful session and making it a huge success. I'm absolutely sure that today's power-packed panel of experts have and will continue solution-oriented discussion and through the on-ground work that they are doing, and provide frameworks for the decision-making mechanisms and global cooperation for fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals and active participation of the youth. A big thanks once again to all our partners, and lastly, a small reminder requesting everybody to join us for our cultural gala night with your families and friends as some amazing performances await us at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time, happening live on our YouTube channel, BRICS Chamber of Commerce Industry. Thank you everybody once again.